that, we've got Alistair McConnachie. He's going to have an oral speech again, and then I'm going to finish it off. Right, Alistair, when you come. Thank you, Niall, and thank you to Craig, who gave a tremendous talk there. And he raised the point about what we are doing here today is so important. Because, you know, the politicians have got a fancy phrase for it. They call it normalizing the narrative. And that's what we are doing. We are normalizing the narrative about ending mass immigration. We're normalizing the narrative about protecting our country. We're normalising the narrative about stopping the boats, being serious about stopping the boats, not just going after the gangmasters, but turning off the tap before you mop the floor, which requires stopping the boats. Oh, Alistair, how'd you do that? We get a little Royal Navy ship with a couple of Royal Marines on board, we intercept a boat, we tie it to the back of the raft and we drag it back to Calais. And once you've done that 2 or 3 times, believe me, the boats will stop coming. And all we need is the political leaders who have the nerve to stand and the moral stamina to take that point on and to stand by it and to do what it takes and to stand up against the media and to stand up against the British taxpayer-funded NGOs who need to be defunded, by the way. It's a disgrace that the Scottish Refugee Council, it's a disgrace that all these other pro-mass immigration organisations are getting our money. That has to stop. They should never have started in the first place. And you know, people might say that's a bigger rally than ours, but remember, they've got the money, they've got the media, they've got the politicians on their side. But that's going to start changing because we have the power to convince the politicians that they will not get our vote. They will not be re-elected unless they stand by our agenda, unless they stand up and protect our country. Do you know, if you go to the Home Office website, the very first sentence, and I'm going to read this out so I don't get it wrong. The very first sentence says, quote, "The first duty of the government is to keep citizens safe and the country secure." I'm going to say that again. According to Her Majesty's UK government, the first duty of the government is to keep citizens safe and the country secure. Now I ask you, has the British government in 17 years kept its citizens safe and the country secure, or has it betrayed us? And we have to get back to them taking their responsibilities and their duties as they write them down, seriously. And you know, they've got 19 speakers on the other side of the square, and I don't want to spend too much time on them, but I just want to point out that of the 19, 12 of them are employed by NGOs or the Scottish Parliament or various trade unions. 12 of the speakers are salaried to campaign specifically for mass immigration. It's an absolute disgrace how our country has fallen to the level where we will pay people to campaign to invade our country. It has to stop. It has to stop, folks. And I'm getting emotional because it's unbelievable. We are standing here today on hallowed ground. Men and women who died that we may be here today. And yet our government is paying people to fight against us. It's beyond belief. Beyond belief. And we need to get the politicians here and we need to say to them, you have to answer to us. You don't answer to your fan club over on the other side of the square that you're paying money so they can lick your ass. You don't answer to them. You answer to the working class men and women of Glasgow and of Scotland. And you better do it, Mr. Sawa, because our colleague who spoke earlier there, Craig, says this is not going to be the last time that we're going to do this. We're taking this message directly to the politicians. We're taking it directly to Hollywood. And we're going to make this the issue in 2026. Because believe me, in 2026, there are going to be people standing who will be calling for an end to mass immigration. They will be calling to stop the boats and send them back. They will be opposed to the resettlement of fraudulent asylum seekers in Scotland. So we will have people to vote for on the constituency ballot and on the regional ballot. And if we do that, then the Labour, the SNP, the Tories, the Lib Dems who do not stand with us will lose their seats. And that's the only thing that politicians care about, is getting votes so they can be elected, so that they can pick up the massive salaries that we pay them. That's what they care about. If they know they're going to lose their votes, then they will start to change their tune. And even if they only change it a little, it's still important, because it's called moving the narrative our way, moving the discussion our way, taking the discussion from the people on the other side who have got nothing to offer. I was reading their press release, and all they can talk about is quote unquote the importance of multiculturalism and the importance of racial equality. But let me tell you, I think in some ways multiculturalism is okay. In some respects, I think we all want racial equality. In other words, you can believe in multiculturalism and racial equality, but that doesn't mean that we have to have 1.2 million people coming into the country every year. Racial equality does not mean that you should allow your country to be invaded across the English Channel every day. So when they talk about, and Anna Sawa does this, John Swinney does this, when they try to justify immigration, all they talk about is the word multiculturalism and the two words racial equality. Well, even if you agree with all of that, you still don't want the levels of mass immigration that we are suffering from. You still don't want the small boats, and you still don't want them to be resettled in Scotland. So they do not properly address the issues. They just emote. They emote. They're full of emotion. They're not full of logic. They're not full of sense. They're not full of reason. They're not standing up for you and I. They're just emoting, because in their heads they prefer to emote than to take on real serious issues and find substantial, democratic, humane answers to those problems. And that's what we're about here today. We are about finding the humane answers, the democratic answers, the legitimate answers to a very serious situation. And our politicians have to wake up to this. They cannot be standing about with the other side, emoting, sitting about crying, sitting about thinking about themselves. They need to be listening to how do we stop mass immigration? How do we protect our country? How do we stop the bulls? How do we send them back? How do we keep Scotland for our children a safe and prosperous country to live in? So that's the two things we're doing. We're normalising the conversation, and that's why they are so angry. They are so angry because they see their irresponsible open borders narrative slipping away. Now, from this day forward, will the question of mass immigration into Scotland be something that we all have to just sit and tolerate and agree with? So there's the two things we're doing. We're normalising the conversation. From this day forward, this is an issue that we're going to speak about. No longer is mass immigration a sacred cow in Scotland. From this day forward, it's something we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about making it less. We're going to talk about reducing it back to historic norms. And secondly, we're going to ensure and we're going to commit that in 2026, we will only vote for people who stand on our values of protecting our country, of ending mass immigration into Scotland, of stopping the boats and sending them back. But I just want to end it on that point, but before I go, I just want to say a big thank you to the man whose vision this was, and without whose vision we would not be here today, and that is the Glasgow cabbie. I want to thank him. So Steph, a big thank you to you. Now, I've just got one more question. Folks, should we do this again? Yes! Well, that sounds like a yes. And on that point, I'll hand you over to our fantastic compound Niall.